Hi there. In this video segment, we'll be working with a Cybex row machine. Now, the importance of this machine is that it targets one of the largest muscles of the back, and that is the latissimus dorsi, also known as the lat. Now, the latissimus dorsi is a gateway to other major muscles and is a key player in reducing tension and stress in the neck and shoulders. Now, also with that, being that is the largest muscle, it actually has quite an influence on the shoulders and actually on your posture and spine. So, this is not the only muscle the machine works, but once again, being that is the largest, that is, you'll notice where you're going to be feeling it the most. Typically from the sides, but once again, being the largest muscle of the back, it distends from the shoulder and attaches at certain points of the scapula, mid-back in the thoracic spine, and actually even in parts of the upper part of the pelvis, that is. So, let's get to it. Aside from the anatomy, we want to understand that this can truly have an influence on your posture. I will show the motion first before actually getting on the machine. But once again, these machines, as I've stated before, the direction of force never changes. So the way that it's set at specific angles is what it is. So once again, this may not be for everybody, as I've stated in the past with some of these machines, but we can try them out, see if they work, and I can also give you some other solutions to kind of modify and feel what feels right for you. So once again, from the side position, I'll show you the pull, going from this position, the forward and direction of force, resistance going this way, okay? Now, posterior view. Now, one thing I want you to pay attention to is the influence on the actual shoulder blades itself. As my shoulders go back, we want to think about squeezing the shoulder blades back. So that's something that you want to take in consideration when doing this exercise. A lot of times, folks are going to compensate by shrugging, typically this way. That will have a huge influence on the stress in your neck and not in a good way. So one thing we can consider also is kind of bringing the shoulder blades down a little bit, all right? We call that depression of the shoulder blades. And by doing so, it kind of eliminates that upper trapezius, which is a muscle, activation, okay? Now, there's other muscles that are involved as well, but that's the greatest influencer and most of the times what we feel when shrugging, especially against resistance. And not only that, it actually can change the direction of your pull and it kind of takes away from the muscle involvement that we're looking for. So let's get to the seat. We're going to cover real quick just weight adjustments, as I've stated in many of the other videos that we've done for machines. Top pin, 5-pound increments, twisting it clockwise. Counterclockwise will reduce tension. If it's on a 0 set with the pin out, you're going to have a 10-pound preset on the machine. So there is some resistance here. It won't feel like much, especially because of the pull and the direction of this pull. But once again, there is a little bit of weight because of the pulleys and friction drag being created. For the purposes of this exercise, I'm going to start it off at 30 pounds. And let's talk about adjustments first. So if we look at this, a lot of times folks will tell me they feel more bicep with this exercise. So first we need to make an adjustment on height and making sure that there's no limitations in either the shoulder inflection or either extension. If we check out there with no discomfort, then we can commence on. So what I want to do here is I'm going to make a quick adjustment. I'm not going to be at the top position, nor at the very bottom position, kind of somewhere in the next lower position, all right? So I brought my seat down one click. What this is going to allow me to do is kind of size my arm up. I want to make sure when I'm pulling that I'm able to draw down from here. So I want to imagine my elbow actually scooping back here, not up here. And this is a lot of times what we see is folks either grabbing way up here, watch what happens. If I pull from this high position, there's a huge influence on the elbow joint itself. Now, great if you want to do biceps, but this is not a bicep exercise. I talked about other muscles being involved, the arms actually being one of them. The elbows do bend, and there is an influence on the bicep muscles and forearms themselves, but this is not what we're looking for. That will not allow you to get the contraction you need through the back muscles that we're trying to target. So, first set, height, I'm good. My arm's actually in line with my shoulder here. That works. Now, grip positioning. Once again, not high, not too low. I'm going to start off somewhere right about here at the bottom. And from this position, I want to envision my elbow pulling back that way and behind me, okay? Now, we don't want to shoot so far forward that it causes the actual shoulder blade and the shoulder to dump forward. So we also need to consider other factors such as our shoulder blade and making sure we almost envision it as squeezing back. We talked about that a little bit on the rear delt fly machine. I explained posterior deltoid involvement, but I also talked about influence of the scapula themselves, utilizing the rhomboids, which are muscles in the middle of the back that help to pull in the shoulder blades together. So you could look back at that video if you need to get re-educated on the shoulder blades in retraction or scapular adduction, that is. But for the sake of this exercise, I want you to not only think about pulling, but also squeezing back a little bit, all right? So you will get a better view when I show it from a posterior view, but let's keep on. So my seat height looks good here. If I was way down here, real quick, you can tell that this is not gonna work. I'm gonna have a lot of influence on my elbow, and it's gonna be really hard for me to even get anything for the actual muscles that I'm looking for. So if I'm too high, I can work with this, but still doesn't feel as good. So I'm gonna bring it down one click and actually take a look. I'm in line here, and when I pull, feels pretty good. Now, as far as position of the chest, I did make an adjustment on that. So what I'm doing next is I'm gonna actually bring this back a little bit. And main reason for this is I don't want to, you look at a lot of these machines, they preset us to be in the most upright position, but we have to take in consideration what's happening as we pull. We get this a lot. When somebody pulls, they also break away from the pad. I've just lost my support. This is critical. I want to make sure that I'm able to keep myself situated so I can isolate and really focus on contraction of the muscles that I'm working on. So how do I do that if I find myself doing this every time? This actually becomes almost like a lower back exercise. You're extending, and yeah, still pulling with the arms and feeling those muscles, but now you're kind of integrating other groups of muscles and joints that really shouldn't be doing this work. So, not for this specific action, that is. So what I like to say is, as long as it's comfortable. These right here, by the way, we'll use them for something else, but another reason I don't like to use it is, once again, I get a lot of folks that'll start trying to use their legs to push back. No good. So I like to bring the feet off to the sides, or either behind you as well, and what that'll do is, breaking from the pad a little bit, bring your chest forward a little bit. That'll pull you into the actual machine, so that when you pull, your chest is actually going that way, not back that way. So we've set this up. Once again, as long as this is comfortable here, I know this might be uncomfortable for some of the ladies. You may have to just default to this position. Maybe just bring the legs back a little bit. You know, find a way to try to keep yourself adhered to this, because your support is everything. So now I'm good in position here. With my arms extended, I'm not overreaching. This is what overreaching would look like. Sometimes you'll see folks do this, thinking that it's going to be better because they're going to get more range through their pull. No good. Nor do I want to find myself now where I'm going to have a kind of a false grip position here and I'm not actually getting the range that I need. So once again, I've adjusted my chest position, legs are back, arms fall in position here. Now, we talked earlier about the scapula, the shoulder blades not being elevated, so I'm going to set this down. So just try that. Lift up and then bring it down. And if you had to do this every single time before you start, then do it. Okay, I don't want this, I want this. I'll come into the machine now and analyze the actual piece of equipment. You can look here where the pulleys are. You can't change this, the direction it's going to go. When you pull, you're following the line of pull. That is it. So as I pull, I'm just focusing on stuff. I'm focusing on my muscles. I'm focusing on my shoulder blades. I'll squeeze, I'll hold. I'll bring it back nice and slow. Think about your chest. Almost envision yourself pulling your chest towards the pad versus just pulling the arms. So I'm pulling my chest to the pad, I'm squeezing those muscles back there, and then draw my shoulder blades together at the very end. Hold it, and then bring it down. Now the head, sometimes I see folks do this stuff, or they're way up here. Just try to keep your neck in line with the rest of your body. If you have the chin down a little bit, that's fine. It's not a problem, right? Just don't want you way down here trying to do this pull, okay? So that is the row at this specific angle I've shown you. I'm going to show you from a posterior view so you can get a better idea what it looks like when we're actually pulling. But before I do that, I'm also going to talk about the shoulder blades and another modification that we can do that is quite important, because a lot of times this just doesn't cut it for everybody, right? So what I'm going to do here is we're going to actually kind of change the position of our body This is going to be more for a shoulder blade involvement that we really can't get from this machine because of the specific angle that was created for it. The scapula itself is going to be limited to its full ability to retract back. The only way to be able to get that is if this machine were to be out here and allow us to actually pull inwards this way. It's not going to work with this one. So what I've played around with, and something you can kind of play around with, is changing the position of your body so you can kind of influence the pull. I apologize, disregard the phones. We're closed at this moment. So what we're going to do here is, since I can't get out here and pull, I'm going to try to see if I can orient my body in such a way that if I were to pull here and twist my body, this is actually what I'm pulling at, this specific angle. So let's come here. We're going to draw that elbow back the same way you've been doing. I can actually use my leg now for support, keep it grounded or up here, and draw that elbow back, and now concentrate on drawing the shoulder blade. Squeeze it back. Now you can only do this with one arm. Squeeze it back. Try that one more time. Elbow back. Focus on squeezing the shoulder blade back. So once again, that's going to be like this. It's going to allow that shoulder blade to converge inwards. You're really going to feel some of the muscles in the mid-back while doing this exercise, and still influencing that lat, arms, getting quite a bit of work out of it. So I'd set up my other position. Once again, foot can either be up or down here. The arm could be here for support or here. Let's think about just drawing that line of pull, but because we've changed our angle of our body, it's going to feel a little different. It actually feels pretty good, all right? When we learn to find ways to get better motion of our shoulder blade, we actually learn how it can be a great influencer on the shoulder itself. When that shoulder blade doesn't move well, you see a lot of folks walk around with really poor posture. They're very limited. They're not going to have the ability to really move this around that much. And that could be because of spinal changes, conditions that occur, but it doesn't mean you have to give up and just say that's just the way it's going to be. We want to try to do the best that we can to dramatically change and increase motion through the shoulder blade, not just on a machine. We'll be doing it with many other things. But with this machine, and actually this one right here, which we'll target on another video, you're going to see how the two alone can actually really be impactful for you. So let's actually change the angle a little bit. I'm going to show you the modification there in the actual pull, the way the machine was designed for. And then we're also going to talk about an exercise that involves what we call a protraction retraction that will be done with a fully extended arm, okay? So that's the front view. I apologize for the movement of the camera. Once again, one-man operation here. Okay, so all the positions are set already. We're good to go. So I'm going to set up first, just doing a general pull. Remember we talked about not elevating, depressing, okay, of the shoulder blades themselves. I'm going to go ahead and post my body forward. I'll bring my butt back just a little bit. Legs can stay here or the back. Now I'm set. Arms are in position. I'm going to go ahead, draw my elbows back behind me with a good squeeze of my shoulder blades at the end. Hold, bring it in. Nice and slow with control. Draw it back. Really focusing on the squeeze. You should not be feeling this through the neck, okay? Back down and hold on the squeeze. I'm looking for contraction through these muscles back here, okay? And I'm also feeling this back through here. Now here's the other thing. As I explained earlier, I said that the lat, it spirals down all the way down through here. So, being that it has an influence on these areas, we're not really getting that with this machine, because as you can see, this comes out only here. So in order for me to get this stuff in here to shorten it a little bit, I'd have to create some variation of a twist. Now I showed you a modification real quick. I'm going to go through that one more time just for the scapula itself. So I'll go from here. I position my body. I'm at a little bit of an angle here, but the arm is pulling back this way. Be careful with that leg that you're not bringing it out too far and hitting it with the machine. Good squeeze and hold. That's going to be an influencer for the shoulder blade itself, still with a pull, okay? Now, if I wanted to, this is another modification, something you can play around with. Let's say you've done this a few times already. You're like, okay, I get it, that feels pretty good. Let's say you've done this one a few times already, and you've said, okay, I like that, that feels pretty good too. Well, here's another thing we can do, all right? We can actually, with another one-arm position, we can pull and actually twist a little bit into that. Now that goes into what I talked about earlier. This muscle wraps around. It doesn't just stop here. A lot of times folks are going to say, oh yeah, you feel here and that's it. No, this muscle spirals all the way through here, on both sides that is. So what I want you to envision is, and as you can see, my foot position doesn't stay here. I'm almost pre-setting myself in a way where I can kind of torque a little bit. If you have a back condition, maybe shy away from this one, or come pick my brain and I might show you just how to play around with that position and see if it will work with this one. If not, there's always another way. So let's try that again. Position in the grip is good. I'm using my hand here for support. I'm gonna go ahead and now start rotating a little bit into it, spiraling, almost like I'm pulling my elbow towards the middle of my back. Envision that. Pull out, squeeze, pull my elbow, and squeeze, all right? That's gonna feel very different. Once again, it's a different thought process as far as the involvement of the muscles. The machine's angles aren't perfect, but you know, it's always good to try to just experiment and see what feels right for you. Now, one last thing I want to cover, and this is going to be the Retraction Pro Traction, which is basically the shoulder bringing it back and forward. Different than the pull that I showed at an angle. This is with a fully extended arm. So how this one's going to go, my body position will be identical. I'm going to do this with both arms, but I can also do it with just one arm if I choose to. And you're going to imagine you're squeezing the shoulder blades back together, then drawing them forward. Now, some folks like to do this probably bringing the seat back just a little bit, or the actual chest pad back a little bit. And the reason for that is so that you actually are not overreaching. I mentioned earlier not to do that for your setup for the actual pull itself, but for the purposes of this, you want to get an idea of what this feels like. And when I say, I'm going to show you from the side here, the shoulder blade itself drawing forward in what we call protraction, and then squeezing back in what we call retraction. These are important motions, all right, because the shoulder blade itself has to have the ability to elevate, to press, upward, downward rotate, you know, and go into these different motions. So I'm bringing this slightly back towards me a little bit. I might have to overreach for this one. I'll scoot back just a little bit. Now what happens is I can allow the shoulder to draw forward without actually bottoming out on the weight. So there's the forward position, and then there's the squeeze back. I'm imagining I'm keeping my chest anchored, and I'm almost envisioning I'm pulling my chest towards the pad as my shoulder blades go back. Squeeze and hold, bring it forward, and bring it back. I'll show that without resistance. This is something you can practice on your own. Forward and back. Don't let this lift, okay? Remember what I said. Depress, forward, back. I'll show that from a front view here. Forward, back. This is important stuff because many other exercises that you do will have to involve some level of an anterior glide of the shoulder blade or even posterior glide, forward and back. So explore with that. So let's quick recap. Showed you on the anterior view, we did a nice pull with both arms on the machine. We did a single arm pull at a slight angle, working that shoulder blade back with that squeeze a little bit, since the angle of this machine doesn't allow for this pull from the outside. It's more of a medial pull outwards. We covered many things. We covered some protraction, retraction with the fully extended arm. I talked about positioning of the seat height and whatnot. Once again, adjust the seat to where the shoulder height is in line with the arm. The resistance pull, keep it low. I don't want you pulling too high because of the bend on the elbow itself. You're going to find where there'll be too much influence on the bicep, and many times that fatigues prior to the bigger muscles of the back. Keep it a little lower. Envision your pull coming down through here. So imagine elbow back there, okay? The shoulder blade itself, sometimes you'll hear folks say to preset it in retraction and then pull. You can do this, but this is more for somebody that's advanced, that truly understands the scapular involvement. I would just say, do your pull, and when you get at the end, emphasize a little more squeeze. So if you're doing weight adjustments, I always like to say is go a little lighter. You may have the power to pull it through, which I see a lot of times, but I don't see folks working on this stuff. This is so critical, it really is, especially to this exercise. So don't go fast and try to launch forward, because you're gonna notice that shoulder blade is just gonna draw forward. If you're truly trying to make changes here, really focus on that squeeze back at the end, hold that position, draw it forward. Okay, once again, the row machine, the Cybex row machine, It is a great piece. For some folks, once again, it may not feel that well. We have many different pieces of equipment here that can actually mimic a row, but once again, it's a machine. It does have a specific angle, might be really great for you, and it may not. Okay, so I hope this video helps out, gives you a better idea of the involvement of the shoulder in pulling, involvement of the actual muscles involved, and how there's such a great influence on not just the shoulder, but the shoulder blade itself. Alrighty, you take care, and I see you in the next video. Thank you now.